But on Tuesday, Minister of Power, Works and Housing, Babatunde Fashola, called on Nigerians to embrace the use of solar energy to help reduce the pressure on the national grid. His call focused on solar electricity generation for off-grid communities in Nigeria. Well, let's discuss this and power issues in Nigeria. Energy analyst and publisher News Direct Samuel Ibiyemi joins me now in the studio to talk about this. Many thanks for your time, Samuel. Yes, let's look at this latest. First of all, the agreement, the power purchase agreement between the government and the Akwa Ibom power plant. In this age and stage, of course, many other countries looking at South Africa are looking at renewable energy. But with this latest that the government has put forward, a 540 megawatts power plant, what's your take generally on the power sector in Nigeria?
Well, I think it's a good way for us to move forward. Just as you know, currently we have shortfall in power generation. The capacity as of today is still below 7,000 megawatts. Even though we've recorded a bit of progress in the last 2 years, from 2,600 megawatt to 7,000 megawatt, but that is still below what we actually meet the demand requirement, because the demand requirement as of today is over 10,000 megawatts. So if we have this kind of PPP, that's public-private sector arrangement coming up, I think it's a good way to move forward. At least this to say that the IOCs, the international oil companies are really coming up to support the initiative of the federal government. Because, you know, without power, there's nothing we can do in the economy.
Exactly. That's one of the thrusts of the last NESG summit. Power will solve a lot of challenges Nigeria has on ground. And what Babatunde Fashola said was that with this 540 megawatts PPA, it is consistent with the clear policy of the government, especially with the EGRP, that's the Economic Growth and Recovery Plan. But he's also calling on Nigerians to embrace the use of solar energy. One would have thought that government would be channeling a lot of investment into solar.
Yeah, solar is very good for us, because if you look at our environment today, Nigeria, we have a lot of abundant supply of solar. You know, the radiation, it takes place as long as we have life on Earth. So Nigeria today has a capacity to generate about 600,000 megawatts of solar energy. That is just 5%. Let's say 5% of our land mass today can really generate 600,000 megawatts of solar energy. So if the government can really look at this area, that we have abundant supply of it, there is nothing like militancy. Nobody is going to break no pipelines. The only challenge is the cost, you know, the initial cost. But the payback period is also very high. When we are talking of the cost, we are talking of the solar modules, which are very high in terms of acquisition. And but when you look at the lifespan of these solar modules, it takes about 25 years, so and the payback period is also very good. So really, if the government can focus on solar, it will help us to also have a very, you know, solar is also another source of very clean energy. And you know, Kyoto agreement, which we signed several years ago, it also helps us. And if you look at solar, again, you know, Vision 2020 is still part of it, in which Nigeria is looking at becoming a developed economy by 2020. So if we look at gas and we look at solar, it's a good way to move forward. But my challenge is the continuity, because every program of the federal government, if you look at it in the last 20 years, when this administration steps aside, maybe in the next 8 years, who will continue that project? It's a very good thing.
You've been a reporter in this sector for a while now, and we've been talking solar, but what level of commitment has the government put into development of solar so far?
The issue of solar started as far back as 1979, when the Energy Commission of Nigeria was established. But and we have about 6 locations in which government actually put in place, in which to actually develop solar energy in Nigeria. But from time, just as we have policy, you always have policy. How do we implement? That has been the challenge. That has really been the challenge. Then, you know, as at the time when crude oil was above $100 per barrel, you know, the excess, the so-called money we are keeping, the excess crude oil account should have been invested in that area, so that Nigeria today will have what they call energy sufficiency, you know, because that's what every country globally is looking at. I remember when I was in a United Arab Emirates. United Arab Emirates was already talking of in the next 10 years that yes, according to the plan, the energy plan for UAE, there was this fear that in another 10 years, before the recession of 2 years ago, that with the rate at which industries are coming up, the economy was developing, that there could be shortfall. And several companies globally were invited to come and invest in the power sector in UAE. So if the government today is very serious, government should take solar as another, you know, is this future, is the energy for the future. Yeah. Because the Nigeria economy today is more or less like what they call diesel generator economy. We are, everybody, there's no house, we get to, you not see generator. But when you take all these costs away, you look at also the impact, the negative impact of liquid fuel, you know, on the society, you know, it goes a long way.
All right, so I know many Nigerians at the moment, of course, the government has been saying we've generated this amount of megawatts. I was opportunity to speak with the vice president, and he said about 7,000 megawatts, like you said. Yeah, yeah. And I asked that, yeah, it's a known fact that when it rains, there is power. But when the rain goes, there is no power. Now, at the moment, let me ask you, is there any plan, or has the government begun any plan to begin building solar models, as you say?
You see what the government is looking at today. Everything, just like what we have, the Akwa Ibom power plant. The government is more or less looking at what they call PPP. That is to invite investors.
Just like what we have in Lagos State. In
Lagos State, yes. So that because the capital is not there. Solar is highly capital intensive, and if you want to look at how much it will cost to actually have, even for us to generate, let's say, 50,000 megawatts today, the cost is higher than that of
About how much do you think?
It all depends on what you are, the location.
Because truly, if we're talking about the cost, let's talk about how much the government has sunk into power in the past years.
I know what government has actually invested in power in the past years. Why we've not been able to get result is as a result of corruption. So, but when you are coming to the return investment in solar, solar is good. The cost is high at the initial stage. But if we remove corruption, we need to remove corruption.
All right.
We need to get the actual cost, and that is why PPP is the only way in which we can really achieve what we are looking at in a short term. Without PPP, if government is still say is also going to take the lead to say that government is going to set, what government should do is just to be the one to license, to invite people to license and give the necessary incentives for people to invest. Make the policy very easy. All these issues of multiple taxes, you know, there should be tax holiday for whosoever who want to invest in the solar. I believe with that, it will help Nigeria to move far ahead. And you know, like, if you look at our population of over 150 million today, we are talking of inviting investors into the economy. We really need power to make sure that
Samuel Ibiyemi,
Nigeria becomes a developed economy.
Publisher, News Direct, Samuel Ibiyemi would have to leave it at that. Thank you for your time on Business Tonight.
Thank you so much.
We appreciate it. Thank you. You're watching Business Tonight. After the break, the role of women in trade policies is essential in fostering leadership. Just stay with us.